I'm Matt Higgins and I'm into RC. You might be wondering why I'm doing donuts in a rock crawler. Well, it's because I can. Thanks to some key modification and changes I've made to my Axial Early Bronco, it's gone from tippy to very stable. One of the most important modifications I made was the addition of a Reef's RC sway bar. I mounted it to the chassis using a Spare Time Hobbies 3D printed mount. We normally don't think of sway bars and rock crawlers going together, but this sway bar really helps control a top-heavy vehicle. The Early Bronco is probably one of Axial's most realistic rock crawlers, but scale details usually come at the cost of a higher center of gravity. To combat that, I started attacking the roll cage. I wanted to do two things here. One, increase the scale realism further by making it less of a race-looking roll cage or a hardcore trail rig and more of a street rig that hits the trail sometimes. To do that, I either unbolted or cut away large parts of the roll cage. The crossbars that go on top of the cage and the crossbars behind the driver's seat and passenger seat were removed. Next, removing the spare tire and its mount made a huge difference in the center of gravity. Those items weigh a lot, and taking those off lowered the center of gravity considerably, making the truck far more stable. Next, I removed the stock molded seats, which are quite heavy, and replaced them with these simpler Kydex seats that are far lighter and go great ways towards lowering the center of gravity further. These are mounted with simple double-sided tape. While I was at it, I removed the molded plastic hood scoop and covered the holes with an older Axial sticker I had. The rear bumper on the Bronco wraps around the body to protect it, but the downside there is it could get hung up and caught on rocks and obstacles, so I trimmed it back so it tucks behind the body. To lower the ride height and get a more realistic stance, I swapped out the stock 100mm shocks for 90mm shocks from an Axial base camp. If you don't have spare shocks or want to save some money, you could take the stock shocks, remove the lower mount, and mount it to where the lower links mount to the axle. This will lower the truck about 10mm also. I wanted smaller tires that more closely resembled what you'd see on a full-size Bronco. So I went with Proline Toyo Open Country tires. These are 4.45 inches tall, which makes them the scale equivalent of about a 33-inch tall tire. These are mounted on Triol's vintage aluminum wheels. These are much heavier than the stock plastic wheels, and they further lower the center of gravity. Up front, I mounted Proline's new 2-inch LED light bar. This light bar features both flood and spotlights. While it's a small detail, I swapped out Axial's stock red diff covers for their replacement black diff covers. The downside of smaller tires and less ground clearance is that it's easier to get stuck. To make sure my Bronco could keep going, I installed Spectrum's S7110 servo winch. The RT on the Toyo Open Country stands for rugged terrain, which means it's kind of a mix between an all-terrain and a mud terrain. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe and hit that like button. And if you can, please share the video.